I know for a fact that Kundalini energy and the chakra system exists because I went through a psychosis trying to open that shit. This was back in 2021 around November, and I had just started getting into my spiritual journey because I was going through a lot of shit. I had just got kicked out of my last home with a relative that I was staying with. It just didn't it just didn't work out. And then I was staying with another relative. I hadn't talked to my parents in like a year or so, and we were going through this whole CPS court case. So needless to say, I had a lot of trauma I was trying to unpack, and spirituality was just something that I automatically was gravitated towards. Like, even when I was living in my household, I remember this was like back in 2020 when COVID first started, and so everybody was like posting videos online, and I remember like spirituality and manifestation becoming popular, and I literally used to make like little spells, and I used to write down like the 369 method, I'm out of my house, I'm out of my house, I'm out of my house, like 20 million times. I used to script. I used to go to the metaphysical shops and get crystals when things like open back up. I was just heavily drawn towards it, and I think that it was a safe haven for me. And so when I moved in with this relative, she was also spiritual, and she did like tarot cards, and she was familiar with crystals. So I had gotten back into my spiritual journey because I kind of fell off for a while, and I was just going through a lot of shit, like I was saying. So this all started with one book. I remember realizing that I had a lot of shit I needed to heal from. I was becoming like indulgently like self-aware. I remember just like, there's self-awareness, but then there's like too self-aware. Like, I was becoming self-aware to the point where I'm just like, oh my god, I thought this. Like, I was constantly writing down things that I was thinking, which is not bad, but I was being like really obsessive over it. And I remember opening up this book. If I find it, I will show it on the screen. But I remember opening this book, and then like the description of the chakras and like how to align with them and how to know if your chakras are blocked. It basically gave like the whole rundown of the chakras in that book. And I remember looking at that, and I literally busted out crying. And I think that's when I started to go a little nuts. And those were like the first few signs of like spiritual psychosis, because like I said, I was becoming obsessively indulged in spirituality to the point where that's what I would do every single day. I would go outside and I would journal all day. I would go outside and try to script and talk to my guides, and I opened that book and I just started crying because I realized like all of my chakras were blocked, and there were some things that I had to work on. And I felt like when I opened that book, I had never resonated with anything more in my life. Like that book read me down to its because all of the stuff that it was describing on how your chakras were blocked, those were the things that I was going through. So I was like, oh my god, like I finally figured out the solution. I know how I need to heal. I need to start unblocking my chakras. I need to start talking to my guides. I need to get more engulfed in spirituality, because my belief system at that time was I need to see it to believe it. So I was trying to like dead ass contact the spiritual realm. I was like trying to meditate and do whatever I needed to do to just like get them to, I don't know what the fuck I thought, honestly. I thought that they were just gonna come down and be like, I'm here, and just make their presence known. I don't know what I was thinking, but I would say for me, during that time, those were the first signs of psychosis, of me just obsessively getting into spirituality, finding a book and realizing, oh my god, I need to do all this healing, and then start doing the tools to try to kind of speed up the process. Like, when I tell you guys, I was overindulged in spirituality. That was literally all I thought about. That was all I was like researching. Like it was even in my social media too. Like, I remember I kept looking up all these conspiracy theories about the world, and I think that's what also did it for me, because not only was I diving into spirituality, I was also looking at conspiracy theories about the world and about life, and honestly, it psyched the shit out of me, because I remember there was like one fucking video that was talking about like, oh my god, like the Matrix is real, and I tried to tell people about the Matrix, and she ended up it was just like a whole bunch of conspiracy theory shit, things about the Matrix, things about like this reality being an illusion. And I also remember that I watched the documentary called The Theory of Everything by Spirit Science while high. Like it was just this was a deathly combo. Conspiracy theories, overindulging in spiritual work while also being high. Like, if you can't, that there's not a worse combo than that. And I was just doing it all because, again, I was in the I need to believe it to see it mentality, and I wanted to rush my process because I was like, I'm so unhealed, I need to heal, I need to get to a better place in my life without really like sitting with myself, instead of like distracting myself with like drugs or distracting myself with people or these conspiracy theories. I never really sat down and did shadow work or was like, okay, like let's go inward. I was like, let's try to go outward, because I thought that spirituality and my guides and, you know, the whole spiritual realm was something that was outside of me, and that I needed to contact them. I needed to figure this whole life shit out so that I can be better in my future. And it was just like a whole thing. And mind you, I was only 16, 17 at this time, so I had a lot of life ahead of me. I'm only 19 now, but I still have a lot of life ahead of me, and I'm still don't know everything. So I don't know what I was thinking by doing all of this shit. I can't give you an explanation. I just know that those were the first signs of the psychosis, was just being heavily indulged in like conspiracy theories, like I said, overindulging in spiritual practices, and then I was also over-analyzing people's behaviors. So what I mean by this is, like, after I watched the Theory of Everything by Spirit Science, I started taking the chakra book that I found, and I started over analyzing everybody. Like, every time somebody did something, I would be like, oh yeah, their root chakra is blocked. Or every time I would just like observe people's conversations, and I'd be like, yeah, your throat chakra is blocked, or yeah, this chakra. And then like people would just be going about their day, and I'd be like, yeah, like you need to do some healing work. Like, yeah, you definitely don't know the shit about the world. Like I was being so judgmental. Like, I would sit down and look at my family and be like, yeah, like, or the people that I was living with, and I'd be like, okay, you guys need some work to do. Like, yeah, like my sister-in-law, the person I was staying with, like, I would be having a conversation with her, and she would be telling me things, and I'd be like, maybe you should look into your root chakra, or maybe you should look into your throat chakra. Like, I was just so big into this, and I just couldn't get anything off my mind besides spirituality, because I was just obsessed with trying to figure shit out. And mind you, this happened like over the span of a couple weeks. So first I started with realizing that I had a lot of work to do. I opened that book, realized that everything in it resonated with me, and so I started digging deep into spirituality, doing practices and everything. I started journaling, I tried to reach out to my guides, and then on top of that, I was looking at conspiracy theories about the world that honestly scared the shit out of me. I started looking into like documentaries, all of that stuff. I started overanalyzing every single behavior that my family made or other people. I was just constantly trying to figure shit out. And on top of that, I was also smoking weed. So that all together was the signs that happened over the span of a couple weeks. And even my family had kind of recognized that I was spiraling a little bit. Like, I was just kind of like so in my head, and I just like didn't care about, I'm telling you guys, like, all I cared about was the chakras, kundalini energy. I only cared about like the conspiracy theories. Like, I was losing my motherfucking marbles trying to figure out this life shit, trying to figure out spirituality, how to contact my guides. And so yeah, and this led me to my breaking point where all hell broke loose. Okay, that day that all hell broke loose was the most traumatic day of my life, and it honestly put things into perspective for me, and it made me realize that I was actually going through some sort of like spiritual awakening. But the day started out completely fucking normal. I remember me and my sister-in-law went to go get Chick-fil-A, and then I was still carrying around my book, observing people's behaviors, and then I had texted her brother that night to come drop off some gardening tools, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word on here, although I probably already did. I asked him to drop off some gardening tools later so that I could smoke, because I had planned in my little head that I was going to do this ritual so that I could meet my spirit guides and open up my chakras, because I decided, okay, I've done enough research, I'm ready to just to just dive into this shit. I just want my chakras to be aligned. I want to heal. I want to see the progress of what I've been doing. I want to actually experience something so that I know that what I'm doing is real, and so that I have proof. Like I said, I was really in the logic mentality. I couldn't wrap my head around this whole spirituality and the concept of the chakras and energy centers because I couldn't see it. I can't see the energy centers within my body. I couldn't see the omnipresence of the universe or source within me or within like everything else. I couldn't see that shit. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a plan and I'm gonna sit down and light some candles and do this whole ritual so that I can invite my spiritual team in and then I can meet them and everything's gonna be great and fine and dandy. Boy, was I severely wrong. I was severely wrong. Shit went so left. Okay, you're gonna want to sit up for this. Like, buckle up. So I remember that night after I had got the weed from him, I had like a whole mat laid out and I lit different candles. I had my LED lights on and I remember turning the color red on because I was like, I want to open up my root chakra, and I also want to, I set my intentions to do that, and I also set my intentions to meet my spirit guides, and like I wanted to just go into the multiverse or whatever. I wanted my spiritual eyes to be opened. And as I was smoking, I visualized a red, it's so crazy because I'm wearing red right now. Like, oh my god, I swear to you, I did not even recognize that I was wearing red until I fucking just noticed right now. But I remember sitting down in a meditation pose after I had got done smoking, and I visualized a red spinning vortex in my mind's eye. And normally when I tried to visualize things, I really couldn't like see it, you know, like my visualization skills weren't really there. Like I had the image in my head, but I couldn't like see it. And when I was meditating, I actually fucking saw the shit. Like it was like a spinning red vortex circle, and then immediately the base of my spine started vibrating, and I was like, when I tell you guys, I was scared shitless. I blew out all the candles, and I feel like after that, my mind, my consciousness just went completely out the window. Like I knew I did some shit that I was not ready for, and I went too fucking far, and now I lost my shit. I remember blowing out the candles, and then everything just started feeling really fearful. And I feel like now reflecting on it, that was like, because the root chakra is where all of our fears and our survival instincts are, and so I think that just got expanded, and it just like I went through the door in my ego and all of my fears were expanded. I literally don't know how to describe this to you guys because I was fucking out of it, and I can only remember bits and pieces of like everything that I was doing. But what I can tell you is that I was talking to myself in the third person, like I wasn't even there. I remember I kept saying things like, why would she do this? She's just so young. Why did she have to do this? And then I would pace around my room, and I would just like, I thought that I could control everything outside of me. I thought I was controlling the weather. It was dark as fuck outside too, so it was like midnight, and the leaves on the trees were like swaying, and I thought I was controlling the leaves, and I think it was thundering at that point too, or something was going on because we lived by an airport, so there was constantly like noise going on. And so I thought that I controlled it, and I was like, oh my god, I have so many powers, like how can I don't know. I was like, oh my god, like they're gonna freaking experiment on me because I have all of these powers that I just opened and I don't know what I'm doing. But again, I wasn't conscious of this because I was thinking and referring to myself in the third person. And so I was like, oh my god, I'm going fucking crazy. And so I go out in the living room and I sit next to my sister-in-law, and I'm like, I just need to tell you something. I'm like, I don't know what I did. And then I kind of explained to her what I tried to do, and so she's just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sit with you and make sure you're good. So I'm like, okay. And so literally she's sitting like imagine this is my bed, right? So she's sitting like on the bed over here, and I'm sitting over here, and I'm like rocking back and forth. And I remember I kept going into like this trance. Like I would lay down and kind of like pass out a little bit, and I remember in my head, like my head was telling me like, you need to die in order to be reborn. And I kept saying to myself like, I don't want to die. And then as I was doing that, I felt like the base of my spine, like the serpent that it's often talked about in Kundalini energy. I remember the serpent trying to go like this, and I was like, no, 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 I'm not ready, I'm not ready. And then like as I was like in that trance of like passing out, my mind kept telling me like, you need to die, you need to die, you need to die. And I'm like, I thought it was like an actual death, and I was like, no, I'm not ready to die, I'm just so young and I can't die. And so like I would be in that like passing out, and then I would wake up like so it was like I was being fucking resurrected or something. Like I would pass out. I'm trying to like describe it. I would like sit there and be passed out, and then I would like and then, you know, like wake up like that. And I did that like multiple times, and like I'm pretty sure my sister-in-law who was sitting next to me was like, what the fuck is this girl going through? Like she's like, do you need to go to the hospital? Like, do you want me to take you there? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like, and I kept asking her, like, I need to go see a tarot reader, like I need to go see a psychic or something. And she's like, girl, it's late at night, like nobody's gonna be able to do that for you. And I was like, oh, I'm losing my fucking mind. Like, and I remember continuously pacing back and forth. And then like I was sitting on my bed and I was like rocking back and forth, and it felt like nothing was okay. Like everything she tried to do to calm me down was not fucking working, because I'm telling you, I lost my shit. And as I was rocking back and forth, like I remember praying. I was like, archangels, like please, please, please help me. Like I don't know what's going on, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and I was literally just like going like this and just like praying to my spirit guides, and I felt like I had angel wings on my back. Like I'm telling you guys, I was in the psychosis. And so I don't remember much after that. And then all I remember is that my sister-in-law went to sleep. And why she went to sleep, I don't know, because I was still losing my motherfucking marbles. I don't know, but she went to sleep, and I was up that whole fucking night losing my shit. I was up by myself, and I remember I couldn't sleep at all. Every time I tried to go to sleep, my mind just wouldn't shut off, and it just felt like I was never gonna be able to sleep again. And so I remember looking at all these videos, and I was like looking at this I was looking at this one video talking about spirituality, and I was like, oh my god, this is God. God is talking to me right now. And then I kept like, and this was around Thanksgiving, so I was like circling around the table. I was walking back and forth from my room to the living room, and I remember thinking that if I went in my room, like there's gonna be like angels or gods in there, and because I kept hearing like thundering, but it was actually coming from my sister-in-law's room, because she likes to play like little noise shit like she likes to have noises in the background while she's sleeping, and one of them happened to be like rain and thunder. So I thought that was going on in my room. Like I don't know what the fuck, like I'm telling you guys, completely lost my shit. And so after staying up the whole entire night, my sister-in-law and my brother wakes up, and again, I'm still in this like psychosis state. I remember thinking about angels and heaven and hell, and how the devil was just a fallen angel, and I was just thinking all of these like religious, like philosophical things. And so when they had woken up, I pretended like I felt like I had to pretend that everything was okay. So I was just sitting on the couch, and I remember my sister put on like a Christmassy movie, and so we're just sitting there on the couch, and mind you, I'm in like a robe, so I have nothing on besides a robe and some socks. And so I remember getting up like in the middle of the movie while she went to go make food, and I was looking out the door, and it's snowing. I live in Michigan, so around November, December, it starts fucking snowing, and it was like inches and inches of snow out there. And I remember looking outside, and I was like, oh my god. And then I opened the door, and I just bolted. I literally just bolted out of the fucking door, and I had no consciousness, no recollection of everything that I was doing. I just remember running up and down the streets, screaming at the top of my lungs. I took off my robe, so I was butt-ass naked, running down the streets, screaming at the top of my lungs, and people probably thought I was like absolutely batshit insane. They're like, what the fuck is this girl doing running in the streets butt-ass naked? And so I remember coming to like the front of the complex, and this car, like this truck, stops, and he's like trying to put his jacket over me, and he's like, where is your parents? Like, where are the people that's taking care of you? And so my sister, like, she's pulling up in her car, and like at this point I'm on the ground screaming at the top of my lungs. Like, I'm literally just screaming. And I remember my mind telling me, like, scream louder, scream louder, scream louder. And my mind was also telling me, like, God is coming to save you, like, my child, my child. Like, I remember I kept thinking thoughts like that, like they weren't actually me. And so, like, the police were there, the ambulance had to come, and I was in the back of the police car just, like, losing my motherfucking marbles. Like, I was, like, bouncing around everywhere, screaming at the top of my lungs, like, acting like I was, like, needed to be in a goddamn mental asylum. And so they had to strap me to the back of the ambulance, and while I was in the ambulance, I was screaming, like, the names of my parents and their address, and I was saying, they abused me, and then I was also saying the name of the pedophile that I used to date, and I was saying, he raped me. And, like, I think that all of my trauma was just coming out at that moment, and I just kept repeating those things back and forth, and then I also kept repeating my name. And then they had took me to the hospital, and I remember, like, I thought I was going to hell. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to hell, like, this is not, like, and then I had, like, I was being so fucking delusional. Like, I thought my ex was in the next room, and I was like, oh my god, like, I just had flashbacks of us, like, having sexual encounters, because he was a pedophile and I dated him when I was a lot younger. And so, like, all of those memories just kept coming back up, and I remember going in and out, like, passing out. And then I just remember, like, this nurse lady, she was sitting next to me in the bed, and she was like, she had my hand, and she was like, it's gonna be okay. Like, she sat with me the whole entire time, and she was talking to me, and I will never forget her, because she had, like, these piercing blue eyes. Like, she was just like this beautiful black woman with these beautiful blue eyes, and I was like probably scaring the shit out of her, because I was looking at her like this the whole entire time. I was like, oh my god, like, oh my god. And so actually, I have the notes from the fucking hospital. Let me go get that shit. Okay, I'm looking in my other phone right now, because please tell me I didn't delete it either. I'm back. I just sent myself the doctor's notes from the day that I was admitted in the hospital, and it was so bad that they literally diagnosed me with bipolar, although I don't have any symptoms of bipolar. I don't resonate with being bipolar. I don't have manic episodes. I don't have highs and lows. Like, just everything that I looked up the symptoms of being bipolar, and none of that resonates with me. It was only in that specific moment that I was acting bipolar, or maybe they thought that I was having a manic episode or something, because that's honestly what it looked like. But prior to that and after that, I've never had anything like that happen to me. So it says 16-year-old female, so I was 16 at the time, and this happened on November 28th of 2021, and it is now 2024, and I'm 19 years old. So 16-year-old female with history of depression was brought to the emergency department by EMS for a psychiatric evaluation. Per report, patient was found running around in the streets naked. Patient seems to be hallucinating and responding to external stimuli. Brought to the emergency department screaming and thrashing about on arrival. History is otherwise limited. Once asked about presenting symptoms, patient states that she doesn't remember what happened. So after I got out of the psychosis, my consciousness was back, and I was acting normally like how I am now, and I honestly didn't remember anything that happened besides the details that I told you. And I was hesitant on telling them those details because I knew that their asses were gonna send me to a mental hospital, and I was not trying to do that. So this was like during the psychosis when I was in the hospital, and like, look, you could see here, like, these are literally the notes from the hospital. So it says, was found running around in the streets naked, able to get some clothing to cover prior to transport here. Patient was screaming, attempting to get off the stretcher, accompanied by paramedic, and was attempting to climb off stretcher, taken a room, trying to climb off the bed, instructed to sit back, and then she would for a minute and then try to climb off the bed again. Began responding and talking to person blank, I'm not going to say his name, which was my ex, the pedophile that I was dating, and he wasn't present, and then yelling loudly, Writer getting vital signs on patient, and she grabbed the writer's arm, placed in restraints, screaming, "My spirit angels are coming to get me." Blank, the person, my ex, "He's here, can you see him? She's just a child." Then began moaning loudly and rubbing backside up and down on stretcher and being sexually inappropriate, making remarks as, "The Lord is here, he's coming to save me, my spirit angels are here, you're not saved." Able to answer how tall she was, but nothing else. Continued to scream loudly, twisting about on bed while in restraints, and then moaning again and making sexually explicit remarks. Active case against patient's father for sexual and physical abuse. Had been living with her older sister for 8 months. Sister was in the process of getting custody. So, yeah. That was a whole experience. When the doctors had tested me to see if anything else was in the thing that I was smoking, there was literally nothing else besides gardening tools. I don't know if I can say it on here. There was nothing else besides that one substance, and so I know for a fact that it wasn't anything else besides me trying to open up the chakra system and open and activate Kundalini energy, and I realized that I was not ready. And so they did actually end up sending me to the mental hospital for like 2 weeks. They put me on medication, and I was so opposed to this because I know that I wasn't psychotic, I wasn't mental, I didn't have bipolar. Like, I was just trying to go into the gate of something that I wasn't ready for, and I had ended up losing my fucking mind. Like, when you go into something with your ego and you're not ready for it, you're going to have a psychotic episode like that. You're going to freaking be delusional, and people are going to think that you're crazy because you tried doing something that you were not ready for. And that was the lesson, and I am so grateful to my spirit guides and to myself, I don't know, the gods. I was grateful to source spirit that I actually did not lose my fucking mind, because there are so many people out here that take substances such as shrooms or LSD and they lose their minds, and their minds don't come back. So I was grateful enough for my mind to come back and me to regain consciousness so I can heal from things that had happened in my life prior to me going into psychosis, and healing from the psychosis itself, because that was an extremely traumatic event, and I was so scared to try that substance again because I was afraid that I would go into psychosis. Although, like, of course I did it again, but I didn't go to psychosis after that. And then after I had gotten out of the hospital, I had stumbled across the book called Be Here Now by Ram Dass, and this is how I knew I was kind of going through some sort of spiritual awakening and I wasn't going through psychosis, because again, I had not had psychosis prior to that event and after that event. So it's been 3 years, 2-3 years, and I have not had another psychotic event. I don't have bipolar. I don't have the symptoms of being bipolar. I think that it was just me going into the door of something that I wasn't ready for. And then I had found this book, and let me skip to the page that tells you exactly what I went through. So this is the page that I flipped to whenever I got out of my psychosis, when I got back from the hospital. And it says, "I've been with literally now well over 100 people who have had such an experience, which was so powerful and valid, but it was so discontinuous with their normal consciousness that they screamed for help. And the help that was available to them was a group of minds which said, 'That's all right, you've just gone crazy. That is the experience you've just had, is the experience of a psychosis.'" And then it says, "That experience you had is psychotic. I'll give you Thorazine. It's not valid. You're hallucinating. What do you mean you're God?" And during that psychosis, I thought I was God. Remember, I said I thought that I could control everything outside of me. I thought I could control the weather. I thought I could control other people. So I was kind of going through like this religious like psychosis, thinking that I was God and God was within me, and that, like, you know, everything was God. And so and then I literally cannot find the page, but there was another page in this book that was talking about how when you go through the door with your ego, that's when things go wrong, because you're not ready and you're not prepared for those things, and that's how you can end up in a psychotic episode. And I think that I was led to this book by it's called Be Here Now by Ram Dass. I don't know if I said it, but I was led to this book to kind of make me feel like I wasn't crazy, because you know, the people around me were just saying like, oh, like you were going through a lot of trauma, like you just had a psychotic breakdown, like you were just going through a lot of things. But I know that it was because I was trying to open up my chakra system. And like after that experience, my like the base of my spine and like my root chakra started vibrating, even like it started vibrating here and there. Like sometimes when I would be sleeping, like the chakra would start vibrating, and I would get scared again that I was gonna go into psychosis because I couldn't get rid of like the vibrating in my spine for like a while, until it had just went away. And so yeah, like that was my experience with like having a psychosis, and it definitely has led to me having a more spiritual understanding of like I have to be patient with things. I can't rush into things with my ego, especially if I'm not ready, because it can lead to psychotic breakdowns like that. And I feel like that is why, like I said before, we see so many people who have opened things up that they weren't ready for, and now that's the person on the street talking to themselves, and you look at them and you think that they're crazy, but in reality they have just opened something that they weren't ready for, and now they lost their consciousness, like their mind just checked out and they couldn't handle it. And so that's why I'm saying I'm so grateful that my consciousness was able to come back to me, and I didn't lose my fucking mind forever, and I wasn't stuck in a mental hospital forever, because the way that went was super scary, and that could have very much been the case. But I know that experience happened for a reason. And like I said, you know, and I'm not dismissing the fact that some people do actually have psychosis, and you know, sometimes it's not a spiritual awakening, sometimes people just do have psychosis. And so I'm not dismissing that fact, but I think my experience was a spiritual awakening because just of all the facts that I laid out here, and just the fact that like I don't have those experiences anymore. Like that was a one-time thing. And it's the fact that I know what I felt, I know what I saw. Like my chakras like was literally opening. I saw the spinning vortex in the base of my spine. I saw the kundalini energy trying to rise above my spine, and my thoughts saying like, oh, you had to die. But I thought, you know, it was physical death. In reality, it was just a spiritual death, an ego death that I had to go through that I was not ready for. And so yeah, I think that was the conclusion that I came to. And then it's also the fact that I do not trust doctors. I don't trust, you know, people in the medical field, because they are taught to diagnose you with something. They just treat the symptoms. Because you see, like when I was going through that psychotic episode, they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, and I don't have bipolar disorder. Like I'm very well aware that I don't have bipolar disorder, and I don't have any of the symptoms of bipolar. I don't resonate with being bipolar, but yet they diagnosed me with that. And then when I was in the hospital, they put me on medications for being depressive and having bipolar disorder, and I felt like a damn zombie. Like I don't like medication. It just suppresses the symptoms. It doesn't actually heal the symptoms. And I feel like that's the thing that's wrong with this big pharma and the medical field. Although yes, they have done a lot of wonders and they can heal and treat certain things and certain issues, I just think that in the broader aspect, it's just suppressing the symptoms and not actually teaching us how to deal with the symptoms. And so yeah, and then I had also looked at like a video recently actually that was kind of similar to this one, in explaining how in indigenous cultures they are so connected to the land, and then they have like shamans in each one of their tribes, and these shamans go through a similar like psychotic episode or psychotic breakdown where they literally lose their consciousness and they feel like they're going crazy, and they have like these spiritual experiences or like these mental problems that they can't explain, and then they are actually guided and taught by someone who has went through similar experiences, and they are able to actually help them through it and allow them to realize that they're not crazy. They have spiritual gifts. So yeah, I just think it's crazy how in Western culture things like that are considered psychotic, and you're put on medication and you're put in a mental hospital. But in other cultures and indigenous cultures and different tribes around the world, this is actually considered a spiritual gift. Like you're considered to be a shaman, you're considered to be someone who can be of service to people because you went through an ego death, or you went through these psychological problems, which aren't actually psychological problems. They're just spiritual gifts, like seeing or hearing things or hearing voices, or you know, all of these things that they ask you before you get checked in the mental hospital in Western culture. Those things are considered to be spiritual gifts in indigenous tribes and other cultures around, not in America, around the country. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you liked it, please leave a thumbs up and type in the comments whether or not you've been through similar, or you know somebody who's been through similar, or just your thoughts on my story and your opinions, because I would definitely love to know. And also feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep making content like this in the future, as well as check out my resources in the description box below, because I will have all of the things that I talked about in this video, all the books, the videos, and as well as access to my Patreon account where you can become a member and get access to my Discord server, different content updates, a chance to be on my podcast, Planet Divinity, and so many other cool things, and just a community of people that you can vibe with who are also going through their spiritual journey. So yeah, thank you guys for watching.